Is corruption a purely Western concept? The suggestion that corruption is a Western concept and does not apply to traditional societies, where corruption does not have such a negative meaning, can be best referred to as utterly preposterous. The conceptual fallacy of this statement can even be proven contextually, without referrals being made to relevant literature. Apparently, the statement's author had a hard time realizing a simple fact that people's perception of corruption as such does not have a negative meaning, does not affect the actual essence of a term. For example, in Africa, many people do not ascribe much of a negative meaning to the term gang rape, on the account of gang raping being an integral part of their daily lives. This, however, does not imply gang rape is less of a criminal act. The same applies to the earlier mentioned statement. The fact that in traditional societies people seem to be perfectly comfortable while dealing with corruption does not suggest these traditional societies are less corrupt. Utilization of linguistic euphemisms to refer to the notion of corruption does not make it appear in a more favorable light in the eyes of those who rely on their sense of logic while assessing surrounding reality. Given the fact that, during recent decades, native-born citizens in Western countries have been deliberately brainwashed to think of the concept of Western civilization as something necessarily evil, male chauvinistic, and imperialistic, it comes as no surprise that these suggestions now enjoy semi-academic validity. For example, in their article, Young and Tung offer a Chinese euphemism for the term corruption, guanxi, which they define as the establishment of a connection between two independent individuals to enable a bilateral flow of personal or social transactions. According to the authors, it is not only that managers' reliance on guanxi, while conducting business, is fully appropriate in China, but it should also be the case in Western countries as well. While relationships and networking are also important in the West, their role is often overshadowed by institutional law, which establishes what can and should be done. In civilized countries, law always represents the voice of final authority, especially when business practices are being concerned. Apparently, Young and Tung had a hard time understanding this simple fact, just as it is the case with many owners of Chinese restaurants, who serve dog and cat meat as chicken to unsuspecting white customers. It appears that the author of a statement is being utterly ignorant as to the fact that it is namely the traditional, rural societies, which serve as the breeding ground for corruption. In rural areas, people do not have any other option but to exist as integral elements of a community, while striving to establish close and personal relations with other community members, hence, ensuring their physical survival. This is also the reason why people endowed with peasant mentality are known for their talent in making 10 to 15 children per family. In hunger-ridden rural areas of the Third World, it increases the chances for at least one of these children to grow into adulthood. Thus, the very notion of gift culture cannot be discussed as a thing in itself, outside of objectively existing socio-political realities, which define the mode of people's existence in every particular country. It is well worth noticing that gift culture is primarily concerned with bestowing gifts upon people in positions of power, and not vice versa. For example, for businesspersons that operate in China, establishing useful connections with government bureaucrats represents the matter of foremost concern. According to Young and Tung, gift-giving, entertainment at lavish banquets, questionable payments, overseas trips, and sponsoring and supporting the children of Chinese officials at universities abroad are common. In other words, what the Chinese refer to as gift culture, Westerners refer to as corruption. And the latter definition is much more intellectually honest. We need to understand that the so-called traditional values, out of which the loosely defined concept of gift culture originates, are not worth even a penny. For example, the Islamic law of Sharia explicitly forbids banks to charge a percentage for lending people money. How had the owners of Islamic banks dealt with the prospect of being cast into the lake of fire on account of their bank's sinful functioning? They simply replaced the term lending with the term providing valuable services to a community, while continuing to charge percentage, a so-called Islamic banking. Therefore, for as long as we live in civilized Western countries, ruled by secular law, we will continue referring to people's affiliation with a so-called gift culture as the foremost indication of these people's criminal mindedness, pure and simple. It is namely Westerners who have led humanity out of the darkness of primeval savagery towards the light of civilization and progress. Therefore, it is up to urban-minded Westerners and not to some natural-born peasants from the Third World to define what is corruption and what it is not.